INingizimu Afrika iyaqhubeka nokulwa nezindaba ezithinta abesifazane, intsha nabantu abaphila ngokukhubazeka. Labantu ke bangabanye phela babantu abasengozini kakhulu ezweni lethu. Izinselelo zabo zikhuphukile futhi zihlanganisa izindaba ezahlukahlukene ezifana mbukeli nezenhlalo kanye nezeminotho. Muva nje uMengameli uCyril Ramaphosa umemezele amalungu amashasha ekhabinethini likahulumeni wehlandla lesikhombisa elihlanganisa wonke amaqembu eGNU. Phakathi kwalaba ke kukhona iDepartment of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. INingizimu Afrika ithathe izinyathelo ezinkulu phela zokulondoloza amalungelo kanye nesithunzi salaba abantu ngokusebenzisana imithetho kanye nemigomo ehlukahlukene. Ngenkathi ke INingizimu Afrika yenze inqubekela phambili mbukeli ekwamukeleni umthetho wokuvikelela abesifazane, izingane kanye nalabantu abaphila ngokukhubazeka, kubalekile phela ukuthi umphakathi kwamukele ngenkuthalo imiqondo yokuhlanganisa nokulingana. Sikubingelele sikwamukele mbukeli, igama lami ngingu-Alisha uNonhlanhlwa kaJali. Khumbula ke mbukeli ungaba phela ingxenye yohlelo lwethu ngokuthi usishayele ucingo. Izinombolo zethu e-studio 011-714-0677 noma 011-714-0678. Emakhasini ethu okuxhumana our X handle u-SABC @SABC Izindaba. KuFacebook ke ikhasi lethu lithi SABC Izindaba. Ukuze kube lula mbukeli, sicela nje uqale umqhafazo wakho nge-hashtag Asikhulume, #SABC News, bese ke ubhala umbuzo noma ubeke umbono wakho. Mbukeli, uhulumeni waseNingizimu Afrika uthathe izinyathelo ezahlukahlukene nokubhekana phela nezidingo zabantu abasengozini. Kodwa namuhla sibuza phela ukuthi lokhu kwanele yini nokuthi yini engenziwa ukuze kube ngcono abesifazane, abantu abasha kanye nalabo abaphila ngokukhubazeka. Namanje ke nathi ukusitshela kabanzi phela ngezinhlelo ezihamba phambili esikhathini esisha asamukele uAdvocate Joyce Mikateko Maluleke kanjalo no Mr. Igor Rix, who is the Director and Access Consultant at Disability Info South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Advocate Masqalengawe, welcome to Asikhulume. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, and good morning to you and to the listeners out there.
Mr. Igor, great having you with us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and also, yeah, a warm welcome to everybody listening in, and trust we'll have a very productive conversation. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Advocate, ndiyazi ukuthi besimele ukuthi sibe nongqongqoshe omusha sha omele khona le portfolio entsha ye women, children as well as persons living with disabilities. But can you just basically bring us up to speed as to what are some of the core as well as vital plans that the department will be looking into pertaining to our rights as well as accessibility to information, nokuthi nje an overall well-being yabantu abakhubazekile, abantu besifazane kanye nabantwana?
Thank you. My department is the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. Children are at social development. Thank you very much. Youth is from 14 years to 34 years. The department has many projects, but I would like to start by indicating that our role is to facilitate, coordinate the mainstreaming of women, youth and persons with disabilities, and to monitor and evaluate what government is doing. Even though when our mandate is about that, we also have certain programs that we are working on. I would like to indicate that before 1994, not just women, ordinary women, but even women who are in government, women who are in political parties, they wouldn't be there if it wasn't because of this government, because of the democracy of South Africa. So that is one of the achievements that we can always talk about, that women have managed to move up the ladder, even though not all women have moved up the ladder. So the role of the department now is to make sure that those women that democracy or the constitution has not improved their lives, so that as a department we're able to advocate for them, whether it be in terms of access to work, access to water, or not being subjected to gender-based violence and femicide, because that is one of the biggest challenges that we're experiencing in South Africa, where women are killed, children are killed, young persons are killed, they are raped and killed. And we've realized as a department that we think the criminal justice system on its own will not help women. It will not protect women. We need prevention. So we are busy implementing programs that would prevent gender-based violence, but prevention requires everyone in society. We call it a whole society approach, where we say how you raise your children. We also partnering with the Department of Social Development in order to train people on parenting, because we think the collapse of the family and the challenge on parenting children is one of the reasons that we have so much violence and children being in conflict with the law, and many other things like substance abuse, 10-year-olds drinking alcohol, 10-year-olds being pregnant, and all those things. So all of us have a responsibility to end that. And there are programs on economic empowerment that we're working on. It's just that I'm throwing in everything. I'm not sure how do you want me to, to respond to you.
No,
Yes.
absolutely, Advocate. We've got some time. Okay, I'd like to welcome Mr. Igor as well and just get some of his sentiments as well around, of course, the fact that there's a new minister under the new government, new administration. Igor, do you feel that some of the issues pertaining to persons living with disability as a Disability Info South Africa might actually, take a turn and actually be looked into and prioritized under this new administration?
Absolutely, and I would actually want to log on to what Advocate Mululeke just mentioned, because we have so much synergies in the same industry. We all have a passion for access, we have a passion for equality, a passion for inclusion, and it starts at home. It's that typical phrase of duty of care. We all need to buy into this new paradigm where we need to see to it that disability, discrimination, violence, etc., it does not fall under a hierarchy. It's everything need to be condemned from the start, and it starts with putting pressure on government to look into education. It's about awareness, but it's also having pragmatic approaches to everything that includes disability. But because we have such a diversity in South Africa, and everyone in their unique way can contribute and live a fulfilled life if the means are there. Whether you go to school, which we're currently sitting with hundreds and thousands, 500 to 600, I think, if I'm under correction, kids that are not intellectually impaired are sitting at home because schools are not accessible. Inclusive education is such a big thing. And then you're looking at transport, housing, the employment we spoke as well. And then from a perspective of live, work, learn, and play, and tourism is another big passion of mine, apart from education, is where these things need to be addressed. Because if you do not address this at a foundation phase, kids need to learn that diversity starts at a very young age, where there's no stigmatization, there's no marginalization, there's no discrimination. You have the right in our Constitution, embedded in the laws, that you have the right to education, you have a right to work and pay your own way. I mean, we have the health situation where everybody needs to be living and earning a living to pay their own way in terms of health insurance, etc. Because your main focus is that people need to be cared for. Having a disability is an expensive exercise. Even transport, if you want to be going from point one to point B, I mean, you don't just get out in a taxi or a bus or a train or a normal vehicle. It takes a lot of money. It takes a planning. And that trip is a traumatic experience, because we all experience disability differently. And specifically, when you have more expenses, who pays for that? So it's a huge conundrum we're sitting with South Africa. And I fully agree with the advocate that there needs enforcement. There need to be an enforceable mandatory requirement, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have the South African national standards Part S that deals with person disabilities and the buildings, etc. But when you look at how we can enforce these, it's a problem because architects, engineers, contractors, developers, they do not understand the space in terms of functionality. And that is a crucial thing for us to do, to say, for me as an access consultant, when you look at a space, to say, it's not just putting a ramp and a bigger bathroom into a facility. It's much more. I mean, we are revamping our own website to be more digitally accessible as well, which is a huge thing for us.
All right, we're gonna leave it there for now, and I think you raise a very important point there, Igor, pertaining to schools as well as accessibility for some children. We're gonna talk about it more. Mbukeli uma siqhubeka phela sikhuluma emva kwaleli khefu ungayindawo. Mbukeli sisahlezi nazo phela izihambeli zethu ngisho yena Advocate Joyce Maluleke Director General with Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, kanjalo no Mr. Igor Rix, who is the Director and Access Consultant at Disability Info South Africa. So, Advocate, this is what I wanted to further in terms of the point that was made by Mr. Rix there. The fact that the accessibility for school children who are disabled is often something that is not even discussed or even catered for by the Education Department. So maybe take us through some of your plans to ensure about how you're going to actually ensure that this is adequately looked into and that children with disabilities will also form part of the normal curriculum and have easy access to any school that they need to be enrolled into.
Thank you very much. There are 450 special schools for persons with disabilities in South Africa and managed by the Department of Basic Education. And there are 800 schools that are fully inclusive. When we say fully inclusive, we mean it's a school where children without disabilities go to and children with disabilities. As a department, we are monitoring the effectiveness of those schools, and there's a research project that we have just implemented. We're waiting for the final results, where we were looking at the effectiveness of the schools, because yes, what you said, there are challenges. People always complain. People with children with disabilities complain, sometimes in terms of the standards, sometimes in terms of accessibility, but I know that the Department of Basic Education is working on it. 2 months back, there was a workshop with all the MECs from all 9 provinces and the Department of Basic Education to discuss access to education for persons with disabilities. But not only that, I think 2 years back, we hosted the summit on quality access to education with the Department of Basic Education and all sectors of persons with disabilities to look at the white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities on access to education. And we have agreed that it needs to be amended and being reviewed. And I would like also to indicate that it's true what my fellow panel said here about the cost of transport for persons with disabilities. As a department, we did 2 research projects on the cost of disability on the families that live with children or persons with disabilities. And we agree, because in order for you to access health, you need transport. And for you can't just stand on the street and get a taxi. You need to pay either on Uber or whatever, whether it's to go to employment or wherever you have to go, you have to pay more access. So we have seen that, and we are working with all government departments in order to ensure that they mainstream that.
I mean, Igor, let's talk about that. I mean, what do you feel? I know you've mentioned quite a few, right? That was obviously pertaining to education and so forth. But what do you feel are some of the outstanding issues that the department really needs to look into that you feel have been overlooked by the previous administration, as well as the ministers that were in charge of the portfolios?
Well, it comes down to mainly two things. It's getting the transport system in such a form that we can provide accessible mobility between point A and point B, because schools are being erected close to communities to limit and to even eradicate the transport issue. But then you sit with things like typical non-motorized transport, what we call the sidewalks, where no vehicles or motorized vehicles are allowed to go. So you'll have vendors on the sidewalk. So if you have a power chair, and it's in some cases, these chairs need to be on a level and required to be on a level surface. So the connectivity is lost. And that's a huge financial infrastructure that needs to be addressed. And that is, I think, to start off with, is to educate the society in terms of what is connectivity, what is accessibility and inclusion, and that everybody buys into it. So when you set up your environment, do look at connectivity, because if there are barriers, these barriers need to be removed, or at least addressed in a certain way that accommodates everybody. Whether you're a shop owner or you need to travel on the road, there needs to be a safe space, and that safety, comfort, embedded in the accessibility and inclusive environment. That is what we need. We need that paradigm shift to say, let's focus on, and again, taking it back to education, because if you cannot get from your home to education or institution, you are really at a crossroad.
All right. Mbukeli sizoqhubeka ke sikhulume emva kwaleli khefu lana sikhuluma ngokuthi le department entsha ebhekene nabantu phela abaphila ngokukhubazeka abantu besifazane kanye nabasha izosebenza kanjani, iziphi futhi izinto nezinyathelo ezizithatha ukuthi phela iphucukise impilo yabo bonke labantu esibashoyo. Asikhulume back shortly after this. Ungayindawo. Sasiphetha ke mbukele ake sidingide kabanzi ukuthi yini phela edingakalayo to ensure that equal inclusion is actually reached for women, young people and persons with disabilities. Sisahleli no advocate Joyce Maluleka ovela yena ke kwi Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities kanye no Mr. Igor Ricks, who is the director as well as access consultant at Disability Info SA. Ngaphambi kwaloko kodwa ake sibheke ukuthi phela ababukeli nina nithini uma nikhuluma nathi lapha ku Facebook. uDavid Nhlanhla uthi silindele ukuthi kusetshenzwe wabagulayo belwashwe, asifuni futhi ukuphinde sibone lento eyenzeka elife esidimeni. uNhlanhla Shezi uthi lutho 5 years lutho. And last but not least, umxolisi enquthu uthi engikulindele ukubona phela lo mnyango usebenza futhi ukumele ukuba khona kwawo. Siyadinga phela ukubona beqonda abazomthetho baqinise umthetho odwabeni leGBV abaphila nokukhubazeka. Siyafisa futhi ukubona ama programs abo bangavaleleki kulo hulumeni bese kuba phela yintsha icijwe ngamakhono azoyenza phela ikwazi ukuphila ingaphandle kuyofesa ifune imisebenzi kodwa yona ke ibe abaqashi. All right, I'm going to wrap up this segment very quickly. Advocate, from you as we wrap up the show, Facebook messages saying they would like to see a lot of laws also being changed in terms of when it comes to issues of GBV. So what basically is the department going to prioritize when it comes to legislation pertaining to issues of GBV in the country?
The President has signed into law the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. This law regulates the coordination of all activities by all 4 sectors of the state: government, labor, civil society, and private sector in terms of addressing gender-based violence.
All right.
As I have said.
All right, thank you, Advocate. A quick one from you, Igor, just a goodbye and maybe your well wishes for this new administration. You've got 20 seconds, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. I think from us as a NGO in the field, we wish you all the best, and I think we have a lot to do together because we're fighting for the same cause, and definitely there are a new paradigm in the waiting, and we are happy to support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to both of you. Advocate Joyce Mikateko, thank you so much and best of luck under this new administration. Igor, we'll be talking to you hopefully once again as, of course, we judge the new administration on their first 100 days in office. Mbukeli, siyabonga kuwena lapho ekhaya ngokuthi usijoyine namhlanje ukhulume nathi ngokuthi sazi ukuthi phela iziphi izinhlelo ezizobekwa phela ilomkhandlo walabo ke abaphila ngokukhubazeka wentsha kanye nabesifazane. Owakajali umntwana uthi nje nisale kahle.